Wolf warrior diplomacy is a term that has been constantly being associated with China in the recent times. And this basically implies that China's foreign policy or diplomacy is becoming more and more warrior-like. I hope you get the drift over here. So warrior-like, that is, they are becoming more and more aggressive or vociferous in the recent times. So be it their diplomats, when it comes to handling of criticisms on the pandemic issue or on the handling of the Hong Kong protest. So number of issues where the world is critical. So they are becoming more and more aggressive. And their language of the diplomats is very crude. They lack the sophistication of what a diplomat should have. And likewise, the China is showing a warrior-like approach, that is, it is picking up fights with the various countries of the world, such as India. We know the Galwan issue that had taken place, right? So in India, in the Asian countries, including disputes with Australia, United States of America, Canada, you name it, they have picked up a fight. So this is the wolf warrior diplomacy. Now you might think, from where does wolf come in? Logical, right? The wolf warrior is actually the name of a very famous Chinese blockbuster, where the hero of the picture movie is a commando who goes to Africa and protect the interests of the Chinese. And the message of the picture movie over here is that nobody messes with China. Even if somebody is 1000 miles away from the borders of China, they will avenge it. So that is the message, and the same message stands for this diplomacy, that is wolf warrior diplomacy. Now moving forward to the analysis. So wolf warrior diplomacy, some of the events. So one of them is the Chinese diplomats taking to social media to counter-attack any criticism on the handling of pandemic or any other issue. So you can read all of this. You can see how the leaders of the diplomats of China are quite unparliamentary, undiplomat-like when it comes to handling and talking about the various world leaders. And then moving forward, China has been picking up disputes with the neighborhood, particularly the disputes with the South China Sea, that is the South China Sea over here. So here you can see it shares maritime border with the Asian countries. So it has been engaged in picking up fights like sinking of a Vietnam fishing trawler and then renaming of 80 islands, reefs, seamounts, etc. in the South China Sea region. In fact, China claims this 9-dashed line that is there, this entire territory of South China Sea as its own. See, this is picking up a fight, or basically picking up a fight, because it's quite logical that these territories should be shared with the neighboring countries over here. And China cannot stake complete claim over these islands or this territory over here. So this is triggering angry protests from other claimants. And then worsening of relations with Australia. With Australia, it is having a trade war. With Canada also it is having. So a trade war is taking place, and then quite recently, Chinese had actually threatened Australia with a missile strike. So it's going a bit far-fetched. Then moving forward, we see that India, which is seen as one of the main emerging powers after China, that India and China has picked up border disputes with India at this point of time. So not just in the immediate borders, South China Sea region, but also with India, it always had disputes, but recently they have claimed more and more territories in the western and the eastern sectors. So it is actually picking up a fight. If nothing else, there's no other explanation for this. And this basically, people believe, the senior diplomats of a country believe that it is a kind of a signal to India that if it creates an alliance against China, such as the Quad group, or it creates a front using the Asian countries against China, then there will be repercussions for India. Now, why is China engaging in wolf warrior diplomacy? There must be a logical reason for this, right? So one reason which the government says, first of all, government says that it is not wolf warrior. This is wrongly attributed to them. But it is saying, it is justifying that the criticisms, the China is basically being more assertive when it comes to the handling of the diplomats talking about various issues. It is being more aggressive in the recent times. So it is responding to the unfair criticisms and Western propaganda against it. So you can see over here, one of the US president was calling the COVID-19 as China virus. So time and again it called it as China virus, pinning the blame of this pandemic to China. So this is one aspect over here. And likewise, China rightfully says that there are certain racist comments or conduct when it comes to the Western countries on China. So it is just responding to it. But it is not so simple as China would like us to believe. China believes that this is the right time to undo the historical wrongs. The historical wrong of separation of Chinese territory, the traditional Chinese territory, from it. So creation of Hong Kong and Taiwan, it believes that this should be peacefully unified with China or the mainland over here. And this, it believes that this is the right time because the world is experiencing retreating of the United States of America, particularly during the time of Trump. And if not, you can see we are talking about the withdrawal of Afghanistan, withdrawal of troops, US troops from Afghanistan. And likewise, we see USA taking a backseat when it comes to multilateral forums. So we see a retreating of USA, and particularly at the time of the pandemic, the economies of various countries, including USA, is strained. And at this juncture of the world history, China is emerging as a major superpower. China sees itself as a global power which can fill in the space that is caused by the vacuum created by the retreating USA. And given the pandemic, China was the first country that was infected with the pandemic, COVID-19. And ultimately, China also is the first country that came out of it. So China came out of it, and it is taking advantage of China's easier approach to economic production, as well as the it is engaging more and more troops in the borders of China at this point of time, where the world is dealing with the issue of the pandemic. So it's taking advantage of the pandemic that has taken place. And then, since China wants to establish itself as the global superpower, it wants to replace the United States of America. So to do that, first of all, it has to emerge itself as the superpower in Asia. So it has to establish a hegemony in Asia itself. So this can be one of the reasons as to why China is engaging in conflicts with various countries. So Asian countries, Southeast Asian, as well as India in this case. And then there are political leaders like Xi Jinping. All political leaders have certain ambitions. And Xi Jinping seems as a very, very ambitious one at that. So Xi Jinping, it is believed that he wants to take over, or he wants to create a legacy that is even higher to Mao, the leader who actually formed the communist China. So imagine his political ambitions, and he wants to place China at the global front, as a global leader of the world at this point of time. Then the biggest factor of all that we ignore is the simmering discontent in domestic affairs. Maybe China does not care as to how the world perceives China, the outside world. It is more interested as to what is happening in what people of China think of their government. And particularly, it is important to remember the Tiananmen protests that had taken place against the Communist Party of China. So this is one slogan over here you can see, and this is what China is most scared of. That is, we no longer trust the dirty public servants. We trust Mr. Democracy. So this is what the Chinese government would be most afraid of. And given the poor handling of the pandemic that had taken place, even China did very badly actually. And the issue of economic crisis and the loss of life due to the Ladakh tensions that were going on, there is a unrest in China also. A bit quiet, it is not very vocal, but there is an unrest. And they don't want this to become a major issue. So this is one thing that they want to address. Now coming to the consequences of the wolf warrior diplomacy. One natural consequence is that the world is not going to like you. You're picking a fight with every country of the world. Naturally, your perception is going to fall. So falling perception of China, particularly as a soft power. And imagine what could be the repercussion. Not just people think that China is bad, but imagine China is the world's biggest supplier, or it is seen as the global manufacturer of the world, right? And people use the mobile phones and many other accessories. So what if people of those countries say that we do not want to use Chinese products? Just that perception is not right. We don't like this because it's Chinese. So that can happen, and that can put a burden on Chinese economy. So that is one thing. And then China's rise is seen as a threat to sovereignty and regional peace. Quite logical, right? Regional peace with India is getting affected, with the Southeast Asian countries is getting affected. So this rise is not seen as a peaceful rise. India's rise is seen as a peaceful rise, not China's. So this is one cause of concern for China over here. In fact, other regions also. Now, what can India do? Right? From an Indian perspective, we are going to write the UPSC Civil Services. So India, it has to be at the core over here. Now, one thing is clear, that wolf warrior diplomacy is here to stay. There may be certain faction of Chinese diplomats who believe that this is the wrong approach. We should follow the traditional approach where the Chinese were humble and followed the principles of humility. But then it is quite obvious that the wolf warrior diplomacy is here to stay. And this means we are going to see more and more border disputes, land border disputes. And in this scenario, we need to invest in border management. We need to invest in the border infrastructure so that we can defend the borders and stand tall against the Chinese. But since China is the world's second largest economy, we cannot just ignore China, and we have certain interests. For example, the pharmaceutical industry, the raw material is coming from China. Likewise, even for making vaccines and so many other things, the raw material is coming from China. So we need this support. So we need to engage in skillful diplomacy, which is a must. Skillful diplomacy. Skillful because we are going to have border tensions, but at the same time, we have certain strategic interests. Remember Prime Minister Modi saying that it is the age of the Asian century, and the Asian century will take place if India and China cooperate. So this is important. And beyond this, we cannot have China have a free run. Since India is the next emerging power and India has regional aspirations, India also has this foreign policy approach known as extended neighborhood. India can look at investing in a regional security architecture with the Southeast Asian countries and also collaborate with groupings like Quad, right? So Quad is India, USA, Japan, Australia, those 4 countries. They can cooperate and form a front against China, or which can act as a deterrent. So these are certain steps that India can take given the threat of wolf warrior diplomacy. So this is all we have in this particular analysis, and this concludes the session. You're watching IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish Singh Rehal. And please do remember to like, share and subscribe. It takes lots of effort and your motivation really helps us. Thank you, bye-bye, take care and all the best for exam.